webinar, but why webinars? Because I like one-to-many, the concept you're talking about. And is webinar the best way to go about it?
I 100% think so. We've mastered and built a webinar system for Go High Level. We've completely mastered the process to the point where today it's automated with snapshots, workflows, funnels, custom values, templates, email templates, SMS templates, such that it creates a result that used to take 3 or 4 team members. When I started with Go High Level, I think I was around 50 team members, and I've been able to scale down, which creates profitability, a higher profitability in my company because so much of it is automated.
Welcome, everyone, to another podcast session with High Level. If you are brand new to High Level, we do something called the Spotlight Sessions. Chase was the one that started this whole thing off, and now it's taken off, and I've recently kind of taken over. And what I want to do is bring in top players that are doing some very creative things in building multi-million-dollar businesses. Now, Andy and we met, I want to say probably sometime last year at one of our first masterminds. I believe he came to our conference, and he's been someone that I've seen start the journey off in a pretty interesting way and scaled all the way fully into SaaS. And, he was already established as a business owner before coming into High Level. And it was really cool seeing him kind of migrate into the model that we've been preaching. So we've got a lot to share with you. But before we get started, Andy, give us a quick story. Where are you from? Who are you? How did you get into this space? I know a ton of people know you. You're a veteran in the community, but for those that are brand new, give us a quick 30-second rundown of your story, man.
Paulson, I'm so excited to be here on this episode with you. My name is Andy Audate. I hail from the smallest state in the country, Rhode Island, and I was raised in the smallest city in that state. So it was 1 square mile between one end to the other end, really toxic environment. And I grew my first business, which was cell phones, which was a cell phones franchise with T-Mobile. Moved to the West Coast. Today, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I own and operate a marketing agency and a software company today.
Awesome, Andy. So today we have a specific plan because there's a lot of content that we want to really share with you. So we want to be really constructive and very critical in how we're carrying the conversation. So right before we started recording, we just did a quick 10-minute rundown of notes of what we really want to share. This whole session today is around turning a $197 SaaS client into a $20,000 client with webinars. And I know that sounds crazy to some of you, but we're seeing traction around this type of a process, especially with Andy's business. And we want to kind of go through and share some of the most important things around it. So to keep that conversation really, really concise, Andy, I want to talk about 3 different pillars. One is, of course, webinars. Why webinars, and how do you get traffic to the webinars? The second thing I want to understand is how you position the webinar itself. Is it tech-oriented? What kind of content is it? And then, honestly, I think the more exciting component for me is the post-webinar sales process. And in between there, we want to also, if you can, understand how you've, if you can share, how you have infused agency services into the SaaS offer as well. And those of you that are watching all the way through, we've got an exciting freebie for you towards the end of the call. And that's from none other than Sean Clark and Andy's another podcast that they did. And we've got some cool things to give away there. So Andy, first thing, turning $197 SaaS client into a $20,000 mega play. That sounds crazy. How is that possible, first of all?
Well, Paulson, I started hosting events. If anyone who knows the motivational speaker Les Brown, you got people like Tony Robbins and so forth, they have a model where they have what we call an FSR, field sales representative, fill up the seminar room before the main speaker gets on. So for example, for Les Brown, years ago, how I got started in this world of marketing is my job was to head into a city first, and I would be there 3, 4, 5 weeks ahead of time. And my job was to fill up the whole entire event. And then Les Brown would come in the day before the event, speak, and I would be already off to the next city. So that was my job. So I knew how to fill up events, and I saw the value of speaking one on many versus one-on-one. I think it's very common today to do a one-on-one sales call, which I still do today. But if you can get you in front of a large group of people and share your topic, idea, strategy, solution within an hour and a half, and give a large group the value that they need to understand to make the best decision. You can get a lot of SaaS sales all in one sitting rather than doing 100 sales calls. So at one of my webinars, I may have 250 people. In order for me to have the same experience, I would need to spend 250 hours doing 250 demos. I'd rather just spend 1 hour doing one demo to 250 people than the other way around, where I'm spending 250 hours doing one-on-ones with 250 people.
Yeah, the funny part is when we first started High Level, the first 1,000 customers came from events. We went to 3 or 4 different masterminds, demoed the product, gave them an offer that's a no-brainer, and that's really how we got our first 1,000. And you have guys like Rob Bailey, Josh Nelson, Nick Robbins, like some of the veterans that already had the audience around them, and all we had to do was just plug in with the 7-figure agencies. So Andy, help us understand the webinar component, right? Turning the 197 into 20,000, it doesn't obviously happen with one webinar, but why webinars? Because I like one-to-many, the concept you're talking about. And is webinar the best way to go about it?
I 100% think so. We've mastered and built a webinar system for Go High Level. We've completely mastered the process to the point where today it's automated with snapshots, workflows, funnels, custom values, templates, email templates, SMS templates, such that it creates a result that used to take 3 or 4 team members. When I started with Go High Level, I think I was around 50 team members, and I've been able to scale down, which creates profitability, higher profitability in my company because so much of it is automated.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So how does the traffic get to the webinars? Let's say you have your webinars, I assume once a week, or is there a schedule? Like, help us understand that component for sales.
So for me, I have multiple webinars, and they're part of our sales funnel. So we have a preview webinar, which is completely free, which you can go to. So if you want to funnel hack me, go to andyaudate.com/network. I think transparency is so valuable. When I've seen other people's spotlight sessions, like, I don't want to tell you my software name, I don't want to tell you my funnel. Go funnel hack me, man. It's working for me. I hope it works out for you. So andyaudate.com/network. So what I did is, that's the free webinar. People come to that free webinar and they get a taste of our SaaS. And I'll be in front of 250 people, 300 people, and I'll share our software and the value components, but I'll share our lowest tier plan, which is $197 to the group. And part of that $197 product comes with a year subscription. Mind you, this is the strategy for retention. It comes with a year subscription of monthly webinars. That's a day long. So I have 2 webinars. Webinar 1 is free. It's an hour and a half. Webinar 2, which is called the Business Marketing Summit, it's a 7-hour webinar. For 7 hours, I'm in front of a group sharing how to use the software, how to use a tool, the value of it, how to generate leads, and so forth. So I give them a game plan on the second webinar. So if we imagine this, week 1 of the month, free webinar on a Wednesday. It's an hour and a half long. I fill it up, got a couple hundred people. I get 15 to 20 sales on that webinar. And then they go to the second webinar, which is the week after, week 2 of that month, which is a 7-hour event where I'm teaching them the game plan, how to drive traffic, so on and so forth. And at the end of that webinar, after hearing me for 7 hours, they're already a customer of our SaaS, paying $197. I say, hey, would you like us to just do the service for you that I just taught you?
This is brilliant. So help me understand how the filtration works. Like, so on that initial preview webinar, somebody has to receive an offer for $197. So you're basically doing a free session, and it's basically a free demo that's automated essentially, right? And then the second component is almost like a paid trial, right? But during the paid trial, you're going through a 7 hours of training, which more than likely you're like by then like totally wowed on automations of what you're not doing in business, right? And at that point, how can they even say no to whatever's further? Like, so help me understand the third step. What happens after that? I think you called it the business summit.
The Business Marketing Summit. So
yeah.
the first event, it's not a paid trial. They actually join the SaaS for $197 a month.
Oh, got it.
It's $197 per month.
Got it.
And they're getting the lower tier plan, which is really just text message, or essentially the conversations tab and workflows. That's what they're getting for $197. Conversations tab only and workflows. There is no opportunities board. There is no sites, there is no social planner, there is no funnels, websites, and things like that. So the reason it's valuable for them is because they're getting a lower end feature to be able to connect their Instagram and Facebook and Google My Business and text message and phone calls all in one platform. So instead of all over the place, all in one place. That's the whole premise of the first webinar. Then when we come to the next webinar, I'm teaching them more about automations and workflows and how to generate leads through the funnels. So that means you're going to need to upgrade to our different plan. You can stay on the 197, that's fine. You're still on SaaS, but you can upgrade to our 397 plan. And when you upgrade to our 397 plan, you get all these additional features. Plus, you can pay a service fee that will do the build out for you, which the build out is a snapshot.
This is interesting because I do know, being part of this startup, like the number one thing about SaaS that I'll tell you is the most dangerous time is the first 20 days, right? If you have to focus on anything on experience for the customer, is the first 20 days. That's when they will cancel. That's when they will quit. That's when they will walk away. You having a education-oriented journey in the beginning takes away a lot of pressure for that first 20 days, because by the time they come into the day one, they're kind of already educated quite a bit on what's possible. So then your onboarding probably is a lot more easier, a lot more cleaner, a lot more stable, I would assume. And is that something that you're finding?
Yeah, I mean, we have an onboarding specialist that when you sign up, it automatically gets on her queue to teach you the software, to teach you how to use the tool specifically for your business. And during even the onboarding, there's opportunities where we find like, hey, would you like us to do more services for you or run advertisements for you, whatever that may look like. So originally when I met you, Paulson, I was agency first, SaaS second. Today we're SaaS first, agency second, and we're dwindling away our different softwares, services. I remember just today someone came to us and said, "Hey, we want to pay you guys to build our website. We'll pay you $4,000." My SaaS is much more than $4,000. So I said to the client, "I'm not interested because it's not within our scope and our SOPs for us to build a website for you, even if it's $4,000." So when I first met you, Paulson, I was like, "I'll take $4,000. I'll figure out an SOP as I'm building it." But today we are focusing on processes, systems, so that way when someone comes up to a custom offer, even if it's financially lucrative to the average agency, I'm saying no because I have recurring.
I remember when you first came to Dallas and we were having the conversation. I know I could have told back then that you were pretty strong on sales, and you were pretty evident. Hey, I do high ticket sales, and most of my clients are $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 clients. And my number one question when I hear that is like, man, that's a lot of fulfillment. That's a lot of hours of white glove service that you have to keep at a certain VIP level for that kind of an offer, right? And I think I remember Sean or myself or Robin, some of us, I think we told you like, hey, what if you sold $500 product that had zero fulfillment? Do you think that's more scalable? And I remember having that conversation. Like, can you share a little bit about that? Because I think you made a post about that as well in the group.
If I was a cartoon, Paulson, when I remember sitting on the top right of like the mastermind, so like you have all the chairs and I was sitting in my seat, and if there was a cartoon, man, you would see the light bulb flicker and the smoke start running off. And I came specifically to that event to get something. I said, I'm coming to this event to get something. I met you online, I met Sean online and the team. But here's what I got. There was a scenario where my chest was a little bit bigger because I'm saying to myself, like, I'm getting clients at 40 grand, 50 grand, man. And this specific moment, my wife played the role of the project manager. So we would get a client, pays 40, whatever the number is, 40, 50, 60, 15, 20 grand for a large service. And my wife will play the role of a project manager. Now I have a big team, right? But we're already a 7-figure agency. I have a big team. And this specific client, there was a specific client, as I was talking to Sean. Now, mind you, I'm getting coaching, mentoring. I spent money to be in Dallas with the team. There was a specific client that said, I paid you this large amount of money. I want to talk to you. I said, the client called me and I said, sir, I have a whole team. Can you get with the team? He said, no, I paid you. I don't want to talk to a subordinate. And mind you, in this specific moment, Sean was just speaking, not to just anyone, he was speaking to me. He was having a conversation with me about how a $40,000 client or $30,000 client is less valuable than a $297 a month client. And I'm like, I don't understand, Sean. This doesn't make sense. And then ring, ring, ring. The phone rings and it's that client telling me, I want to speak to you. So I left the room and I said, Sean, give me a moment, I'm gonna come back. I left the room, handled the client, came back, and I'm like, Sean, I can see how it makes sense because a 297 client wouldn't have called me for a service. They would have, submitted a support ticket. And I said, Sean, I get it. This happened at the perfect time. Like God put something in me. So two things happened when I left that room. No, the first thing is reoccurring is key. All my services today are reoccurring. I'm not interested in a $40,000 payment. I'm interested in a $40,000 a year service that renews annually.
Yeah.
And that it's
Subscriptions
automated.
are a lot better, right? Subscriptions versus those massive packages. So I don't want to derail from the conversations around how, now you're turning $200 clients into 20K. So traffic on those webinars, right? How do the are you running paid ads for the traffic to come? Is it organic personal branding, or are you speaking on stages like you normally do? Like, what is your go-to traffic recommendation for webinars?
There's probably at least for Andy, I'm going to speak on Andy because there's so many different variations. There's probably 23, 26 different traffic sources that are pushing every single month. So I have a team, I have two people on my team that every single month they're updating like Eventbrite and meetup.com and all these different platforms to post about my free event. That's like one example. Then I also have a lot of joint ventures. A joint venture, when it comes down to like speaking in person, mind you, I do a lot of speaking events. One of my conferences is called the Progression Conference. And I've had people speak like Les Brown on there, Tony Robbins have made an appearance, so Sam Bakhtiar, a large group of financially successful people speaking at this event. And the way that I filled up that audience was I would have joint ventures in the city. So for example, if I'm hosting an event in Dallas, I'm going to go find the top players who have influence in Dallas and create a joint venture deal where they get a portion of revenue and a revenue share plus exposure for their business if they bring an audience. So I did the same thing with webinars where I would go to Paulson and I would say, hey, Paulson, I noticed that, man, you have an email list of 200,000 people that you've amassed over the last 10 years. So would you like to do some type of joint venture where I'll take them down through my sales funnel, I'll note you as the lead source, and I'll get you paid on the back end. All you got to do is give them access to a free event. I'll take care of the rest. So that's another traffic source, and I have multiple people like that. The third one that I've used is I use High Level, which is my white label is Progretta, where I go on stages, different people's events and different people's webinars, and I get them to text a keyword to my phone number, which the automation workflow is, what's your name, what's your email, what's your phone number. We automatically subscribe them to the event as part of the giveaway from that speaking presentation. So throughout the entire month, I'm speaking on different stages, funneling people into my free event, which at the end of the month, I end up having 200 something people, 200, 300, 400. The highest I've ever had is 700 people at my event.
Yeah, this is brilliant. So help us understand the context and the content around the experience they come in for. Like, what are you talking about? I know you said you talk a lot about your software and, your white label, everything that you provide. And it's pretty minimal in the sense of like, you're not overloading with a bunch of features. But what exactly is the type of angle? Like, is it techie? Is it more of like, current stage versus desired stage, like results? Like, help us understand what kind of content your webinars have.
So the webinars, if you're planning on hosting a webinar, the first webinar is the what. It's not the how. It's the preview. It's what you should know. So for example, on my webinars, the features of the software, I think I have a 3-minute demo that I play. And that's when I take a sip of water. And that's the only time we talk about features. Everything else is what you need to know. So we talk about traffic and different traffic sources that you can use. We talk about automation, and that's when the 3-minute video comes in. And then we talk about delegation, utilizing a support of a virtual assistant. And we package this as a system, and we say, I'm going to teach you the system. But in order for it to work, you're going to need the tool. So I'm going to teach you the system at this 7-hour event that I'm going to host every single month. The value of this event is X dollars. I'm going to package it for free if you get the tool that you're going to need anyway. The tool is valued at $297 a month. I'm going to give it to you for $197 a month because you're on this webinar. Plus, I'll give you a year-long subscription where I'm going to coach you every single month at the webinar Business Marketing Summit. So now they get the tool that they're paying $197 for, plus the coaching that they're getting tremendous amount of value from on how to use the entire system. But that coaching on the back end is where the upsells take place and community is built.
Got it. So let's talk about the third pillar of this, right? The third pillar is, to me, the most important, which is the post-webinar sales process. Like, that's where the follow-up is, where the treasure is, right? Like, so help us understand the tree, like the framework of how it all flows. Let's say somebody finished watching the webinar. Now what happens?
So let's talk pre-go high level for me. So this process, I was already creating this to sell different services. I was actually a #1 affiliate of a competitive software where they would give me awards, fly me out to different places, and so on and so forth. And this software company, I would host the event and fill up the webinars for them. Now, I didn't have automations like I do today. So what I did was I had to hire a team, and their job was just to change the dates in the email sequences, change the text message sequence dates, and so on and so forth, and call people manually and just leave them a voicemail manually. I had a whole team doing that. When we got to Go High Level, we ended up building that entire infrastructure, and we built it into a snapshot. And this is how it works. This is how the snapshot works. The first element of the snapshot is the funnel. We get people to opt in to register for the event. The second element of the snapshot is a series of reminder text messages and emails and voicemails that are set up at precise times that we found creates the best return to get people to join the webinar and show up. It reminds them to show up, and even if they're not at the webinar, they get text messages to let them know that the webinar started. So that's the second element of the snapshot. The third element of the snapshot is the actual event. So that's when I do it live on Zoom. The fourth element of the snapshot is going to be what we call the 24-hour replay. Now, here's why it's 24 hours. We upload the Zoom call, the Zoom webinar, right to the media library and put it on a landing page. And we send an automated email, text message, and sequence that says, hey, you have 24 hours to watch the replay. What I found was that if you give them more than 24 hours, they end up forgetting about it. So there's text messages and emails at precise times that says you have 12 hours remaining, 7 hours remaining, 3 hours remaining. And
so
what
it's an
happens?
Expiration trigger. Yeah.
Expiration, yeah. And it's all automated. And then what happens towards the end of that 24-hour replay post the webinar event is I'll start getting support ticket emails. Can I have an additional 12 hours? I was babysitting my kid. Can I get 6 hours left? And so forth. So we plug something in. Now, the next element of the snapshot is what we call a post-webinar interview. We get them on a sales call. Now, out of 200 people, I may get 15 to 20 appointments, but these are people who have high intent and very interested in our service. So that post-webinar interview, half of that call is for social media purposes. I get on Zoom like this, and I say, hey, tell me about the event. Tell me your experience. We record it. That's social media content. The second half of that call is a sales call, where I say, hey, I noticed you didn't purchase the offer, or I noticed that you purchased the offer, but your business is life insurance. We have a life insurance snapshot. Would you like to buy it? It's X thousands of dollars. Now, we do the sales call, but there's one more left. And that one more thing is that we do an additional 24-hour replay. Paulson, you'll be surprised on how many sales come in at the additional 24 hours, because they thought they lost it when they lost the first 24 hours. So they get another 24 hours to watch the replay. So my webinar is not 1 hour. My webinar lives on for a good week long. So we're constantly emailing them in the sequence to get them to watch my presentation to ultimately buy my SaaS. And it's all built in Go High Level with a snapshot that if you're interested, just email me. I'll get it to you.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? It's a lot to take in for someone who's watching this, right? Because
Sure.
You didn't get to these steps overnight. And I know this is years of experience of building business, seeing different traffic flow, your skills in event management. But for those of you that are watching, I'll tell you, start somewhere, start small, just focus on the 1% today, right? And do you need to have 15 webinars and these massive systems? Of course you do. You really do, because this is the competition of today. If you're not, competing with Andy, you're competing with TikTok. You're competing with the, NFL, NBA, entertainment, everybody. The amount of eyeballs it takes to get somebody's attention and then turn them into a customer, it's ridiculous, because the amount of mediums and content absorption that an average person goes through. But don't get discouraged because someone is way ahead of the journey versus where you are. So those of you watching, I'll tell you, start small, start at 1%. For those that are watching, Andy, that are just starting out in business, I know there's a lot of people that are just brand new marketers. What would you say to them?
I know if you're starting out, because check this out, man. 2 years ago is when I met Paulson and the team at an event. So I signed up at an event, and I was already ahead, like the years ahead of from when I first started. But I would spend countless hours on YouTube right after purchasing Go High Level. It was an investment, not just in money, but in time. And I would spend countless hours on YouTube really understanding and watching these spotlight sessions. And I would share with you this. We have it built in a snapshot. We'll give it to you so that way it's a lot easier for you. The snapshot tool feature is so important when it comes to building community and relationship, because I can give you something. But however, I would say this. Just get somebody on a group, on a Zoom call, more than 2 people, or more than one person. I mean, get 2 people or more on a Zoom call and do a presentation. If you're just starting out and this is the beginning, and you heard what I just said, and you're like, dude, this dude is, it's overwhelming. This dude is it's overwhelming. I get that, but the reason I am doing it this way is because there's so many different scenarios for so many different people that I want to capture as many people and bring them to my SaaS.
Yeah.
But if you do it this way, once a week, just host an event. Just choose Friday at 12 o'clock. This Friday, you might get 2 people there. Next Friday, you might get 3. The Friday after that, you might get 3 again. Just invite people to come to see you live. And my invitation to you is this. In addition to your sales calls, so meaning you'll still do your one-on-one like demos that you may already be doing if you just got SaaS mode and you just purchased your high level yesterday. You don't even have a white label domain yet. You can still do your sales demonstrations. If the person says, let me think about it, or for some reason you don't close the deal right then and there, just give them a complimentary pass to your event that we're going to call it, where you have 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 or 4 people there to see you live, where all you're going to do is demonstrate the end result of using the tool. Don't talk about all the things that the tool is going to do. Talk about the freedom that they're going to have when they have automations. Talk about the ability to send 200 people to a web page and not spend any time needing to follow up with them because automation is built in. Talk about the ease to use the opportunities board to be able to see the health of your sales in your business. Talk about the value, the benefit, not the features on that webinar. And just ask at the end of the webinar, does anyone have any questions? If not, do you want to buy? No hard sale, just ask them and do that every week. You're going to start getting to that rhythm. And then at one point, maybe in 6 months, a year, whatever that may look like, you may not want to do sales calls anymore. You just want to do large presentations because that saves you a lot of time, energy, and money.
Yeah, and also with time, your tone of voice gets confident, your offer makes more sense. You have a singular way of looking at things, and you're going to start seeing the energy behind your ecosystem just rise up. It'll be literally one weekend where everybody signs up, and until then everybody's at the fence, and it's like this weird popcorn effect that happens. Like if you ever microwave popcorn for a minute, like the 40th to 50th second is when it all explodes. Until then, you're cooking, getting them to a point where you can really push them over the fence with a no-brainer offer. Another thing I want to ask you, Andy, so I know you made this huge transition of going from the marketing oriented agency to being really a SaaSpreneur and being focused on the SaaS component. But what are some ways that you can still infuse the agency services in your SaaS offer for those of you that are watching that are still, interested in that hybrid model?
That's a great question, Paulson. The thing about what I really discovered in SaaS is really about getting reoccurring revenue. It completely changed my relationship with our customers, because when you do a one-time transaction, it's one time. It's like hit it and quit it, right? Compared to being in a long committed relationship. So when someone says, I'm putting my credit card down and I know I'm going to get charged in 29 days or 30 days, it's a relationship that we're building. And what I realized is I was doing it the wrong way in the beginning, just focusing on agency, on high ticket stuff. What I realized is I can give and deliver more value to my customers. So here's an example of what I'm sharing with you. When a customer pays, if you're a high ticket agency today, and a customer pays you $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, that's your budget, and whatever's left over is your profit, and you want to maximize your profit, and you're not going to get any more money from them. So even though you realize like, oh, I could do this to give more value to your customer, it's going to impact your profit to the point where you might end up paying additional just to have that customer get service, right?
Yep.
It might cost you $11,000 to fulfill a $10,000 service that this customer paid you for. But when I switch from high ticket only to reoccurring is the key for me. It's SaaS is a low ticket reoccurring, but what we did on top of that, we bolted on services that are reoccurring that we figure out how to automate with the software. So we have a service, for example, today where it costs, I'm not going to share the service name, but we have a service where it costs $30,000 for the year, and you pay monthly installments. So you agree to pay monthly installments. It takes us 1 day to set it all up with ChatGPT plus a snapshot that we designed. We just put them two together, boop, 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 boop. We set it up in 1 day, which in the past used to have 5 people every month set it up. It's automated. So what I would invite you to look at is how can you deliver value on a recurring basis? Because if you can figure out how to give value on a recurring basis, you want a customer versus you want a deal. It's a different idea. You're not trying to win deals. You're trying to win customers.
Yeah, this is the long-term way of thinking. And one of the things that I'm very proud of at high level is the depth of the relationship when it comes to the subscriptions. Today, guess what? All the agency owners that are here, 26,000 of you, we can look at it as, oh, we only just get paid $297 a month from each one of you. That's not the way we look at it. We look at it as, okay, we're in a relationship with all of you for the next 10 years, and our job is to scale 26,000 agencies overnight. What can we do overnight? So I'm calling Chase. Hey, got any ideas on anything you're seeing that we can tell the agency owners of, hey, here's what we should do. Our challenges that we do, our masterminds, our conferences. Guess what? All the main focus point is figuring out ways to scale your agencies, right? And that type of thinking is what you have to adapt, right? So you having your own white label, whatever industry or non-industry related, if you're maybe tech niche instead of industry niche, whichever way, you have to care about the customers in a new way. And when you go the subscription model, believe it or not, because your churn is so low, it makes sense for you to spend more time. You're not having to go get a new sale. You already have a stable book of business. Now it's just figuring out, how do you elevate that experience? How do you create stickiness? How do you create recurring revenue that is a no-brainer, right? Even if it's annual packages or multiple installments, you're the solution. You become their house inside their business. You become the hub of their business, so they can't can you as an agency today cancel high level and think that you're going to be competitive in the marketing space? It's nearly impossible to be competitive without high level, right? Because we're providing so many areas of the house, right? So Andy, for those that are watching, can you share a couple of final words of what you have around this whole transition that you made?
Here will be some action steps. If you're depending on what stage, if you're just in the beginning, I'm going to give you these action steps. Number 1, if you have an agency, separate your agency with your SaaS. And you can see my background here. We have Audate Media, which is my agency, and then we have Progredo, which is my white label software. So the reason why you want to do that, I was just coaching somebody who is an agency owner, and I think he had 3 customers on his account. And what he did was he was charging people $2,500 a month for a bunch of services, and that included the software. Now, what happens is in the span, Sean talks about it, Paulson talks about it, at some point they're going to cancel that high ticket service, right? At some point they're going to say, let's turn it off. If you turn off, if you're bolted on together, when they turn off that $2,500 a month spigot, they're no longer your customer. They're not paying you monthly. So what I would do instead is I would charge $2,400 a month for my service, and then $97 a month for my tool. Because when they turn off the service, they're still your customer. And then guess what happens 3 months later? They're paying you monthly, and when they're ready to turn it back on, they're going to come to you versus a competitor. If you lose them as a customer, then it's free for all at this point. They can go to anybody else because they're not with you, they're not with anyone else. So keep them as your customer and use the tool as a way to get the customer and keep them as a customer. So that's number one. Number two, Paulson, do a group presentation. You're gonna have different people at different stages of their business. Figure out what's a common feature of the software. Don't talk about the whole enchilada. You know, I think in this podcast, I talked a lot about the systems and processes, but I built it in the snapshot so that way it's easier for you to use. But share what features each one needs. What I found was the conversation was the most valuable feature for every single person that came to in our white label. So I just talk about the conversations and automations. That's it. I don't talk about sites, funnels. They don't even know that sites, funnels exist, you know? So number two is do group presentations. Start off with 2 people, just invite 2 people and use that as a tool to continually educate your customer, even if they don't buy. So what I mean by that is, let's say you do a demo tomorrow and you do a demo for your white label and the person says, let me think about it, or I'm not interested, and so on and so forth. They don't buy. What you can do is to say, hey, look, I have an event this weekend or this Friday. Why don't you join us at the event, and I'll be sharing with you more about the tool. We have a customer, for example, that comes up to my mind that spent months coming to my webinars, never purchased a thing. But when he came in heavy, guns blazing, and he's like, I want the whole system, the whole service, and it all started off with SaaS. So he got the SaaS, and then he came in and said, I want this bolted on, I want this service bolted on, that service bolted on, and he's paying us thousands every single month. But when I presented to him in the beginning, he never purchased. So for your customers who are like, let me think about it, bring them to your event and host one event every single week. Just get one person there, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, and make it a continuous rhythm to speak to large groups of people. At one point in the future, you're going to be speaking in front of hundreds.
Yeah, you know what's the beautiful thing about your business model is the social proof around a group setting. It's so powerful. Like when you're in a group of, let's say, 50 people, you're seeing other 49 people that are kind of interested in the same thing. That allows you to be very strong and solid in your decision versus, let's say, you're by yourself talking to a salesperson. It's not that easy to just make a decision. Like when you see the camaraderie of a unit, of a community, or a group of people that are collectively looking at a similar goal and a North Star, they jump into those decisions a lot more easier, if you ask me, and they don't feel like they're in it by themselves. Most of us humans, we're social creatures. Whether you're introverted or not, you do like the sense of belonging. That's kind of in our DNA, right?
Yeah.
Even introverts, like they have certain preferences of who they belong to in some sense, right? But we are naturally inclined to do things with others. So similarly, psychologically, like a group setting, you're going to probably have a better rate on close rate all day long versus individual sale, even if you wanted to do individual sales. So the last
It's kind
thing
of like,
go ahead.
no, it's kind of like dating, man. Like if you go after a girl or a gentleman, and it's just you and that person, it's that person's perspective of you versus what you're saying. But
Right.
when they see you, like if you're going after a woman, for example, and that girl sees you in the settings of a group, and you're the man, they're gonna say, "Ooh, like ooh, like I'm interested in this guy." Like I was this,
Right.
I was not connected before, but
The
now
energy is different.
the energy is different.
Yeah.
So when you're presenting in front of a group with your tool and you're sharing the value of it, and people's responses are like, "Oh, I like that in my business. I like that in my business." The customer who was not interested in working with you ends up realizing to themselves, "Wait, I could actually use this in my business," and then you convert. And it
Yeah.
doesn't cost you any extra time. And that's what the value. You could have 3 people at your event or 300 people. It'll still take you the same amount of time when you're doing a group presentation.
Yeah. And Andy, I know this is something kind of I'm throwing at you at a curveball, so forgive me for that. But I know you had a podcast session with Sean Clark the other day, maybe a few weeks ago. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but recently. And you had an incredible session with them. Can you share a little bit about that? And is there anything you can give away from that? I know you said you don't mind sharing a couple of resources, but can you just give us a quick rundown of that and we can close out?
So I had a podcast session with Sean, CEO of Go High Level, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, how would you scale and exit if you were a Go High Level SaaSpreneur?" And I said, "You know what? Give me the play-by-play if it was a $10 million valuation of your SaaS company built on Go High Level? And he was like stumped for a bit. And then it all clicked on him because he's doing it with, he's not necessarily exiting, but he's growing Go High Level to that. And he gave me the step-by-step game plan. He talked about the features that he would promote it with. He talked about the affiliates and joint ventures and how to get affiliates and the joint ventures that he would create to help sell, and the methods that he would use to sell his Go High Level account to build it to a $10 million valuation and selling it. So, I mean, what I did was I documented the whole entire process. And not only that, I'm going to end up doing it. So we just started a new campaign where everything that Sean told me, I'm doing it in my white label agency, Progretta. And I'm building the whole entire process step by step to what he created. So what I did was I remastered that whole entire podcast session. I documented everything that he said, and I put it inside of a playbook for me to follow. And because it's already designed in a playbook, plus it's recorded, I said, hey, if you're a SaaSpreneur and you want to get access to that information, I'll give it to you. So if you're interested in that, go to andyaudate.com/agency. That's ANDYAUDATE.com/agency. And you can just download it and I'll give you the whole entire playbook, the system that I'm actually following.
Okay, perfect. We'll have that in the description as well on the YouTube channel. But Andy, I'm excited to hear that session as well. Those of you that are watching, we're so grateful that you took some time out of your day to watch this. And these are things coming out of our real life experience. I hope you understand and learn that we're practitioners of the agency game. We're SaaSpreneurs ourselves, where everything we're sharing is coming from a lot of hardships, a lot of tears, a lot of sweat. And we're just sharing because we want you to like avoid the mistakes that we've made. A lot of folks, they flaunt the results of where they got to. And Andy is one of those guys that I know have a different perspective. He's usually sharing the progress, the mistakes that he makes, great results as well. So Andy, thank you for your transparency.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure being on this episode with you, my friend.
For sure, man. Those of you that are watching, again, if you're brand new to High Level and you never even had an account, jump into a 14-day trial. If not, no worries. We're hoping to, earn your business in some way later on down the line. Either way, we invite you to continue watching our podcast channels on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're catching this. Andy, thank you again. I hope I see you in another mastermind or conference here soon, hopefully. But good seeing you again.
Thank you, Paulson. Next time I'll be speaking at the mastermind.
Hey, there we go. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here.
Okay, take care.